Hi, this is Eric Martin with Board Game Geek. I'm here with Justin Jacobson from Restoration Games looking at Indulgence, which maybe you can relay the history of this game.
Sure.
It was not originally released as Indulgence.
No, it wasn't. This goes back to 1982's classic Dragon Master, one of the very popular trick-taking games from that era. When we wanted to do it, we couldn't get the artwork, and we didn't want to just redo a generic fantasy theme, so we decided to retheme it. We went with the Italian Renaissance, another era of power struggling. So,
Okay.
Yeah.
And maybe you can describe the gameplay for
Sure.
those that don't know. So a trick-taking game, everyone has to have its own twist.
Right. So trick-taking game. This actually goes even way back to originally a classical game, Barbu, with the variable contracts is sort of the big hook of the game. And in this case, it takes the form of these edicts. There's all these different edicts. We have some for advanced games. There's a beginning game and an advanced game. And then each turn there's 3 edicts out on the track. The ruler passes each hand instead of for a whole series of hands like it did in the original game. And the ruler picks which edict they want to do, and then everyone has a chance to decide if they want to do. In the original game it was a power play. Here it's called sinning, where basically instead of doing what the edict requires, you basically do the exact opposite. It's essentially like shooting the moon.
All right.
Now, to give you an advantage, in the original game, there was the dragon card, which was sort of almost a super trump. Turn a card into a king, basically. And here we have what's called the Indulgence. So when you sin, you get the Indulgence. And instead of a dragon card, we have a legit, actual ring that comes in the game box. And you get that card, ring, and you put it in front of you. And then during the hand, on any trick, other than the first trick, you can play it on top of another card that you have and turn that card into a 10 of that suit. So here, if he's sinning and trying to take, he's trying to take all the Borgias, he would need to say, oh, I'm going to lose this hand, so he plays it on there, turns it into 10, and now he wins the trick.
Okay. So. Which, of course, gives control. And,
right.
Yes.
And then basically, if you, on a regular edict, if you basically pay for each card that you're not supposed to take that you end up taking, you pay the ruler. And then the sinner, if you get it all, you get money from everybody else, and otherwise you have to pay the ruler. So.
Okay. All right. So it sounds fairly straightforward in here.
It is. So we just really needed to smooth the gameplay out a little bit. The original game, all the parts were there, but the way it was set up, it could have some problems. There was a big problem in the game is everybody got to be ruler one time, and they did all their hands at once. And if someone could steal your control with the dragon card and by taking the tricks, shooting the moon essentially. And the problem is if you were the first ruler and someone stole on the first hand, you basically would have to play for another hour and have no chance of winning. So we rotated each round. Everybody gets a chance, even without the dragon card, they could get a chance to sin. So you have an opportunity. If you never get the dragon card in the original game, you wouldn't ever get a chance to do that. But here you still have a chance to decide to do it based on how your hand is.
Okay. Okay.
And then we added one other thing. So in the original, there's I forget what's called the Staff of Power, where you do all 5 of the things at once, or all the other 4 at once. We have what's called the Papal Bull. Everybody gets one, and they can do it at any time on their hand. On their turn, they can decide to do all the edicts on the track at once. And it's a good way to get money, but you need to be careful because if somebody has a really good hand and they think they can shoot the moon for all 3 of these and do a sin for all 3 of them, they can do that on the Papal Bull, and if they actually pull it off, they win the game outright.
Okay. All right, that's good. I mean, I love sort of that desperation effort.
Right.
You know, at the end of the game.
High risk, high reward.
Yes. Yeah. So you're going to try for something like that.
I want to add one other thing. So obviously we're a big fan of the Bob Pepper art. Was one of the things that was great about the original game. So we tried to pay homage to it a little bit with the style of the art. We have a great artist, Chelsea Harper, who did all the character illustration. And I just want to point out for our big Dragon Master fans that we have our homage to Piffle here. Costanza Sforza is our, if you're a Piffle fan, you'll recognize him. So, the Fool of Dragon Lords.
Do you want to talk about Restoration Games in general? What the idea is behind the company?
Yeah, I'd love to. So this is basically a shared love of the old games. Rob and I got together and we were talking about some of these old games that we remember from our childhood. These are mass market games that are not being brought back. A lot of the reprints you see today are sort of the early hobby games that are being brought back, but these were mass market games and no one was doing them. And we said there's some really cool games there that just need a little polishing, and we decided that that's what we would do. We take these games from the 60s, 70s, 80s, and into the 90s, find what's cool about them, turn that up to 11, throw everything else out, and build a good game around it. And that's what our mission is.
Okay, that's a good approach. I mean, there's a lot of mainstream that has just continued on the shelves forever, but there's a lot of things that just vanish.
Yeah. It was a weird system back then. You'd have your evergreens with your clues and your risks and all that stuff, but then they were essentially toy companies who were doing games, and the mindset was, what is this season's toy or this season's game? And they would run for a season, and then it might never come back again.
I was talking with designer Richard Borg about things along those lines, talking about how, if I remember correctly, Milton Bradley came out with Bluff, or they did not call it Bluff at the time, and it did well, but they had a pattern. They had a habit at the time where they'd say, whatever the top 10 selling things are, we keep those.
Yep.
Everything else we drop.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter the difference between 10 and
Right.
11, how good it was. It was just like, we keep the top 10 and everything else goes.
Yeah, and they're obviously a much different scale back then. If
Yeah.
they're talking thousands and thousands and thousands of copies.
Yes, you would sell, you know,
Right.
a couple 100,000 copies, and you're like, nope, not good enough. We're done.
Yep.
And there, which is why Can't Stop. Same case where I
Yep.
believe it's on the market for 1 or 2 years, and then they were just like, nope, we're
Yeah.
done. Even though it's an incredibly good game, we're done with it.
Yeah, and sometimes that works out, like Can't Stop, where Sid Saxon gets the rights back, and then he can license it to someone else to bring back. And then sometimes games like some of the stuff we're looking at just sort of falls into a black hole. And those are the games we're trying to rescue. So
Yes. All right. Thanks for the overview of Indulgence, and look at Restoration Games.
thank you very much.